Oh, I did it again, folks. I forgot to hit, when you sync up Zoom, there's a thing in YouTube and there's another button in YouTube, and I've forgotten to push it on multiple occasions. And this is why I'm late, my folks. I was actually, I thought I was streaming. I was talking to the camera for probably 3 or 4 minutes, and I was talking to nobody. And you guys are in the chat going, "What the hell?" And I'm telling people to smash the like and all of this. My apologies, folks. Here we are. I've got my my Christmas decor set up. My kids helped me do this. Good evening, Jim. And it was a little bit fun. And it's a nice backdrop. And I would never been into Christmas, really. Never been into it. But since I've had kids, there's just something cool about getting the tree and doing all that. And so here we are. Yeah, again, my apologies for starting late. My Zoom software that I used to do these streams has just been doing this really annoying thing, and it's done it for the last couple of weeks. And anyways, I keep sorting it out, but it's a pain every time I do it because there's something changing in the software. Not important, but that's why I'm late ultimately. And yeah, tonight we're going to do a shorter stream. And I don't really have a theme tonight, though I did change the name of today's stream to I am double dipping, but I'm not co-mingling. And there's a kind of a saying in the law, I guess, that you don't co-mingle law. So it's kind of like guys who try to play the name game with common law and just get railroaded by the state. And then they say, "Oh, the system's effed because it doesn't work." And it's like, well, it didn't work because the system doesn't commingle. And I think it's true that you can't commingle. And in a way, you can broaden the idea of not commingling in other ways. And one that in particular that I find an interesting respect is commingling the public and the private. And you could even look at that as simple as don't talk shit, or if somebody tells you something that is, they've asked you to not tell anybody, don't tell anybody. It's to commingle. It goes against sort of a natural law, if you will. At least that's what I believe. And but I am double dipping tonight, and they're not the same. So double dipping is well, when you take a chip and you put it in the dip and you take a bite and then you dip it again. That's double dipping. You're in trouble. You're not allowed to do that. Or double dipping could be, referred to in a political sense where politicians double dip, or the bank double dips you all the time. Up and down your life, they double dip you. But I am double dipping tonight in none of those senses, but I'm doing this stream and we'll riff for a little while. I'll take some questions. I'll open up my From the Field thing. Oh, I hope Matthew recreated it for me. I forgot to do it this week. And if I didn't, then there's no questions in there, but I'm just going to, hang out for a bit. And then we're going to move over to Twitter Spaces at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're going to move over to Twitter Spaces, and it's going to be different. I'm going to play some music because on Twitter, I could play music from, and it doesn't get shut down. Like I would love to say in my live stream, open with something I'm listening to lately. I listen to a lot of music that I would love to share with people, but YouTube will take my stream down because that's just how lame YouTube is with all of the stupid, just copyright infringements and just how over the top it is, intellectual property and all that. It's just so insane. But in Twitter, I can play some music. So I'm going to open up the show with one of my favorite jazz artists, Nate Smith. And we're going to open up with that track, and it gets me pumped. It's the kind of music that gets me pumped and optimistic and feeling good. And anyways, I'm looking forward to sharing that with you guys. So that's going to be at 8 And yeah, tonight we're just going to just do this a bit. Twitter link. So at Off-Grid Stone, if you just go to my Twitter profile, you'll see it in there. Let's see here. Let's open up my Twitter and show you guys. I'll show you how these work. Actually, it's pretty cool. Though you have to use your phone, which it is what it is, right? I'm not stoked, but I've got my phone kind of set up on this thing here. It's like on a boom, and I don't have to touch it. and I can just talk to it, kind of like I'm talking to this mic. It won't be much different, though the audio quality isn't nearly as good. But in a way, it's kind of endearing. It almost reminds me of radio, of how radio used to be, and people would call in. And yeah. So here's my Twitter profile. And then when you, with spaces, you'll see them going on here live on X. So you'll see me in here. But basically this, you can click on this and that link, and then you can set the reminder, and then it'll just pop up in your feed. You can see here's one going on here. These are the red ones are live streaming video, and then the purple ones are spaces. And so that's how it works. You just go right to the front of my profile. I've got it pinned there, and then you can click that link. And or if you don't already just see it popping up here, you can click that link and then go there. So that's how that's going to work. So that's at Off Grid Stone. That's my Twitter handle. And I'm trying to, what you'll notice with my videos lately is I'm posting more, and I have more time to make videos in the winter. You know, I think people have kind of figured that out with me by now, if they've been watching my stuff for a while. But I'm content in the winter. I feel more inspired to. I feel more. I can just think about things. There's less hustle. You know, last 6.5 months here, it's just been guys up here all the time working, and it's a lot of running around and talking to people, and it's hard to reflect on things, think about things, especially at the kind of the walk and talk, sort of my philosophical ramblings and whatnot. I have more time to think about it in the winter. But I'm posting more on YouTube, but I'm posting the exact same content on Twitter now too. And so I'm basically taking a stand in my, not a stand, but just another direction in my content, and investing in Twitter as much as I did as I am with YouTube. So I'll keep posting to YouTube. We'll keep doing these for a while and stuff. I don't see a reason to stop them, though. Yeah, it's just the Twitter world or the YouTube world isn't what it used to be. And so it kind of is what it is. And so I think if people want to start following me on Twitter, I'll tell you what, if you like what I post on YouTube, especially if you like things where I do these walk and talks, I talk about philosophical things, things in the law, kind of stuff like that. You'll like me on Twitter because I share just way more, because I always thinking and writing, and I like that. So and I'm producing all the same content that's here on Twitter. So yeah, that's kind of where it's going. Just reading some of your guys' comments. Mike says, if I heard of Lewis Cole, absolutely. Yeah, I like him. It's a bit more, it's a bit too goofy for me though. Like I do like it. And he's an extraordinarily talented musician, good drummer too, good arranger, you know, like band leader, really good. Yeah, I like it. I don't like it as much as say Wolfpack or those guys, or I really like what's it called? What's the other? The Fearless Flyers, spin-off of Wolfpack is the Fearless Flyers. I like that whole, all those guys in that group of musicians are all really good. I enjoy all their stuff. Yeah. Happy holidays, folks. Merry Christmas. Some from Oklahoma. Yeah. Good evening from Langley. Aaron says, hey, Curtis, I'm 35 and own a few houses about an hour out of Seattle. I own them free and clear, and I'm selling one in a few weeks, then planning to go east off grid. Fucking rights, buddy. Absolutely. Yeah, get her done. Kentucky, dude. You haven't picked a place yet. That's where I'd go. Right now, with what's in the market. The market is changing. Holy, it is changing. We've seen this massive uptick in Bitcoin and metals and stuff like that. And so that's always a good sign. Well, it's a good sign and it's not a good sign. It's a good sign if you're invested in those things, but it's not a good sign for the general economy, I think. And it's kind of cool because Bitcoin is, I mean, I've been invested in precious metals far longer than Bitcoin. I could have got into Bitcoin in 2014. A good friend of mine was like, dude, I'm telling you, And I was sort of more of a struggling entrepreneur at that point, but he was like, I'm telling you, man, spend $2,000 on Bitcoin. Just do it. He gave me one at the time and I lost it. A whole Bitcoin at the time was worth like $40. But he told me that. Anyways, he invested that and he's now a complete bona fide millionaire, like just has millions in assets, millions. And from investing in crypto. And so anyways, I did get into crypto. When did I get in? 2018 a bit, and then a lot more in 2019, and then more so during COVID and all that. And I'm glad I did, because I've already doubled my money on most of it. So that better than precious metals, though precious metals are great. And silver is bulky when you're buying it in the monster box, by the monster boxes. It's hard to move. Gold is good. It's just not that fractional. It's 1 ounce. I mean, yeah, you can cut it. You can cut a 1 ounce there, but Bitcoin is just, you can take it anywhere you want to go. I mean, how liberating is that if you think about it? There's no other form of money that's as good as Bitcoin, not even close. And I'm not real. I was into other cryptos. I was into Ethereum and Monero and what else was I into? Dogecoin. Mostly Ethereum though, as another one, but Bitcoin has served me better than any of them. I'll tell you that. And so, yeah, watching it crank right now is sweet. Because it's got to be one of the best protections of inflation, because the inflation that we're experiencing right now is insane. It's absolutely insane. Oh yeah, I was going to look up my from the field thing, if the streams are on here. Really bad at multitasking, really bad at continuing to talk while I'm, I don't think we put it up. Latest content, let's see here. Okay, how about this upcoming live stream one? Let's see what this is. No, that's done. Huh. Anyways, sorry folks, if you wanted to throw a question at me specifically that you normally would do it from the field, but I don't have the video link. If anybody in the chat's a from the field member, throw it in the chat and I'll see it, and then I'll go to it, but I can't find it. So anyways, we'll just improvise. So I've been, oh, actually, I had a couple things written down here that I wanted to say. Oh, yes. So with the Twitter thing, with the Twitter spaces, I'm going to be having guests. So the spaces idea is based on my Liberty on the Land podcast, which you haven't listened. If you like the gravy of my stuff and you haven't listened to my Liberty on the Land podcasts, they're all pure gravy. They're all total gravy. So I haven't done one in a long time. I think the last one I did with Joel Salatin. Go to libertyontheland.com. And those podcasts were gravy. First one I did was with Dakota Cohen. Next one I did was with Cal Washington. Dean Clifford is in there. Just a bunch of good truthers. And it's so anyways, I really enjoyed doing that. The only thing that I didn't enjoy about it was the production time. And because I've been producing content for a long time, 10 years. And so as I get older and have other things to do too, if I can stack functions, I have a tendency to favor that. And so what I like about this Twitter Spaces thing is that I can essentially do a podcast, as I have been, potentially get just as much ears on it, so to speak, not eyeballs, but ears. And it's way less work for me. So, and it's into a platform that seems to be growing. Twitter kind of seems like it's like a new social media. You know how there was stages of social media. I don't know if probably a lot of you are old school enough to remember the first ones, like Friendster. Remember Friendster? And then there was MySpace. And then it was MySpace for a long time. And I was listening to a guy, Ty Lopez. Some of you guys might know Ty Lopez. He's a bit of a chotch. I'll say that. But he was a student of Joel Salatin's, and I do actually admire his business acumen, if you will. But I heard him talking about social medias and how there's first wave, second wave, and third wave. And he was saying the second wave, a lot of, and he was kind of making these comparables to technology companies. And a lot of the second wave just didn't hit it, but the third waves hit it. Because once it's been reiterated enough times to get to that last expression where something new comes out of that, it really takes off. Like TikTok was an example of that. And I'm not on TikTok. I hate TikTok. I can't stand it. I can't even watch it. Even if I've never had it on my phone. I just see people share it on Twitter. They'll share that because the stupid music pops up at the end. And I can't stand it. But anyways, it was in that third wave that got it. Whereas Snapchat was kind of in that second wave and it got left in the dust. And so anyways, he was making an interesting point about that. And was kind of saying that Twitter is basically the new one. And because it's so different than since when Musk took it over, that it's a completely just different platform. And it's not perfect. And there's still censorship on there to some degree, but I haven't run into any roadblocks whatsoever. I can post the most truther stuff. And like I've had posts just showing here's Canada as a corporation. Here's how it works. Like just showing total gravy and no algorithmic throttling, so to speak, throttling you down, just whatever. I can post some of that stuff and it gets as many views as I have followers on Twitter, which isn't much. It's growing quite quick though. It's like 5,600, but it's kind of cool. And as a guy who makes content, you gotta, it's refreshing because I've put 10 years into YouTube and I rant about this a bit and I probably sound like a bit butthurt with it. And to be honest, in a way I kind of am, but I adapt and move on. But, yeah, no, it's this kind of bittersweet thing with YouTube is that this is a great platform for streaming. I think it's almost all I should do on YouTube anymore because so many of my videos just don't get views. Yeah. So anyways, that's how things are going to go. And I'm kind of stoked. But I don't want to talk about Twitter Spaces the whole time we're doing this YouTube stream and then go to do Twitter Spaces. But I would really encourage you to come into that next because I'm going to open with some music and it's going to be a little different format and you guys can call in. Okay. So that's what we're going to do tonight. That's the first thing I should have said when I started talking about Twitter Spaces is we're doing a call-in show tonight. So if you have Twitter on your phone, you can call in. I'll start the stream. I'll riff for a little while and we'll kind of see where it goes. And when you guys join the space, you can basically just request to speak. There'll be a little mic button on your bottom left of the screen on your phone. And I can just kind of bring you guys in. RJ says, which crypto can we use from the field? We don't. Here's the thing with crypto. As great as crypto is in some ways, it's actually it's kind of a pain in the ass to do it when you have either like a WooCommerce or if you're doing online sales, you might have a Shopify account or whatever. You've got some way as a payment gateway. Crypto creates a real problem because now you have to have this whole different SKU system for products, and it's a pain. Nobody, at least that I have seen, has created a way that you can buy it in crypto, you can buy it in money or whatever that we can have on our online platform. So there is no way to do that right now, RJ. What we've done in the past is whenever we launched, say, a big offer, because if you want to just do it with less transactions, because these crypto gateways just don't work as good as money gateways, at least from what I've seen. Okay, somebody might be freaking out about that and saying, "Yeah, you got to check out this," and please tell me. But it's complicated, which is you'd think it would be easier because crypto is easier in every other way. But it's just not in that way. So we were using it to do the lifetime payments for some things, but we just stopped doing it because I don't know, it just didn't work well. It just wasn't stoked on the way it was working. So is market gardening or microgreen still as hot as it was a few years ago? Depends where you are. Yeah, I would say it is. Market gardening will always be hot. Microgreens would be the thing that I think if we get into across the board bad economies might get hit. Having said that, everybody I know doing microgreens is still crushing. I haven't heard from anybody that has said, oh, we're wiped out. Just everybody I know in general in farming is crushing, like absolutely crushing, especially people like closer friends of mine in the market gardening space. One being Eric Schultz, down in Mesa, Arizona, is an absolute behemoth of a market gardener. I think he pulls in, I think it's like $1 million a year now. It's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. They've got their own storefront down in this little, I've done a whole video on it on my YouTube channel. It's a phenomenal market garden. It probably is the best, call it, it is an urban farm, really. It's just it's way larger than anything I did, but it is an urban farm. It is like the best urban farm that I've ever seen in my life. And it's urban, but not that really. It's suburban. It's not in the urban jungle where there's just people everywhere. It's suburban. So it's called the best suburban farm, but it is, he's crushing. Ray Tyler's crushing down in Selmer, Tennessee. He's crushing it. His daughter's running it with him now too. Just doing huge numbers. So no, I still think it's still an incredible time to get into farming. And I just haven't, and I've said this for years. I've been candid with people because I sell our microgreens course is the biggest microgreen course in the world. It's our biggest course. It's the biggest microgreens course in the world. And it is, in my opinion, I'm biased, of course, but it's the best because I find the best people to make our courses. And Jonah Kroc-Malnick is $750,000 a year on an indoor microgreen operation. Like, it's ridiculous. His system is so dialed in, and impressive. So yeah, we showcase the best stuff. And I've been saying for years that, if the economy were to really tank, definitely microgreens would probably feel it first. I said that, but I've been kind of wrong because from what I can see, they keep going. I know some guys that had a little bit of disruption when there was the big supply chain stuff going on. When that kind of, I think it was the Suez Canal, or what was that one where that ship drew a big cock and balls? Did you guys see that? On the satellite image, it just literally drew like a penis. So random. But when that happened, some guys saw some disruption. But I don't know any people, and I know a lot of farmers. I don't know anybody who's really slowed down. So no, it's the best time. Hey, if the economy keeps tanking, I might be farming again. You might be seeing me at a farmer's market near you in southern BC. I've got the infrastructure to do it. I've kind of set myself up that, yeah, I do all this content stuff and I've done pretty well for myself. And but I'm prepared for it to go to zero tomorrow. That it could the gravy train could just end tomorrow, and I'd be farming. I'd be an agrarian, and I'd be fine with that. I'd be totally fine with that. And it might be something a lot of people have to do. So prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and enjoy it while you're doing it. That's my motto. Oh, I thought crypto was currency, but I must be crazy. Why else people use? Well, so Bitcoin, there's crypto and then there's Bitcoin. This is what guys like me now say. I used to not have all these ideas. I used to be more into just all kinds of crypto, but I read a book called The Bitcoin Standard, and it really made me understand the importance, the value, and the scarcity and the power of Bitcoin, and why it is the best crypto. It's not a crypto, because it's the Bitcoin Standard. It's a different thing than everything else. All the other cryptocurrencies have boards of directors, and they have infrastructure and people directing it, whereas Bitcoin was just created. the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper, basically, laying out how this works. It's the blockchain, how the blockchain works and all this. And the guy's a mystery. And there's all kinds of speculation on who he is. And he has a good fraction of the Bitcoins, but it's the only thing that exists. There might be some other cryptos out there that are like Bitcoin. So forgive me, because there's hundreds of them and I can't keep up to date with all the shit coins. And I don't try to, I'm not that into it. I just like Bitcoin. But look at it's proving its value time and time again. I mean, guys like Peter Schiff, who I like sometimes, he's a precious metals guy and he's been talking shit about Bitcoin for 10 years and he's been wrong consistently. He keeps saying that it's going to go this way and go to zero and all this. And it doesn't, it just keeps going up. If you look at the lifetime Bitcoin chart, it just makes this, it's just like this. It's unbelievable. So I think, I think it's the future of money in a lot of ways. And of course, I like precious metals. And, my buddy Steve says, the more ways you have to get paid, the more you get paid. And that's what it comes down to. So if you, and the way I kind of see this is I always imagine water. Okay. Water is such if you can understand the way water moves, it's a Zen thing. It teaches you so much about the way matter functions, how things function under pressure, how they move, how they follow the path of least resistance and move around things and whatnot. But the way I see human energy is in a similar way to water. And this can get pretty esoteric. Okay. So we're going to get into some gravy here. Because I've thought about this for a long, long time. So you guys might be familiar with how in the legal system, everything's referred to as water. And so, the way Canada is defined, the way Australia is defined, I can't speak much for the US, but I really know it in Canadian law, and it's all about water. It's all about the jurisdiction of the crown or Her Majesty is in the water. And it's like, what is that? Like, what is that? Why is Canada defined? It says, for greater certainty, Canada, in brackets, is the territorial and internal waters in and around the landmass known as Canada. So Canada is the water. What is that, right? And then you think about words like currency, money, but currency in particular, the currency, it's the current in the sea. It's currency. And so water and our bodies are 95% water. And water is this thing, when you watch it and observe it, you can really just start to understand the way matter works and how everything moves. And it's that energy through the water that is how we manifest. And so with currency, you have energy, your energy to go and split firewood, your energy to go and get a glass of water, whatever, the energy you move with in your body. When you do work and you create something, that can be exchanged for currency or money. The same thing in the analogy, just the word currency has something to it. And maybe the word money does too, but you now take that stored energy, the currency, and you spend it towards something. And money kind of has a flow, right? You just think about market cycles. You think about money moving in and out of a business. It has a flow. And what can happen in the free market? So imagine money as a river. Okay, it's just a river flowing. What happens when you put a big obstruction in the middle of a river? So let's say our river's this wide. Let's just use this mic as an example. The river's this wide, and then there's this big obstruction in the river. What happens to the water as it goes around that obstruction? It increases its velocity, right? So that friction increases its velocity because because of the force against it, it can't stop. And so in order for it to maintain its flow, it has to increase its velocity in that spot. And so you'll see the water go really fast in an area and then it'll slow down, right? And you see that when you watch like a leaf go down the river, and it'll go really quick and then it'll slow down once it gets into the open area where there's no resistance, when it just flows. And so when you think about money flowing, think about things that create resistance. What would those be? Taxes would be one, because the money doesn't flow as much because, well, one, the taxes siphon it off, but it also changes the incentive. So in a way, less money will go towards paying more taxes, because any entrepreneur who has their wherewithal is going to structure their business to pay the least amount of taxes. That is just logic. And if you're not, if you're not following that logic, you'll be poor pretty quickly. But so things in the market create frictions, and perhaps opportunities create open areas where money flows. So you can imagine sort of money is this river. And maybe that's why the system calls everything a river, because the system is based on money. The entire system is based on money. You've heard that for a long time. That's cliche. If you're a truther in any stretch of the way, you've heard that forever. You've known about G. Edward Griffin, with the Creature of Jekyll Island. Maybe you saw some of those early videos of that guy's name, that really goofy guy with the curly hair, who was called Money. What was his name? Bill Still. I think he still makes videos. That's a really good series about money. And anyways, if you know all this stuff, to say the system's about money is not controversial at all for most people. Even people who exist in the capitalist world know that the world is based on money. You hear all these cliches. Oh, the world makes the money go around and all these things. And it's not how I want it to be. It's just how it is. Because you have to differentiate, because people always get caught in the weeds of arguing of whether the system could be better, because if we did natural law, we'd have all this. And against people like myself, sometimes they just say, well, this is just how it is. Like, it's kind of how philosophically I consider myself an anarchist, in the sense that from a philosophical standpoint, and from a standpoint of, if I could create the world in the way I wanted it to be, I would rather have stateless societies. I would rather have societies just formed on voluntary agreement, and chose to be peaceful because it just made more logical sense to do so. But the likelihood of that happening is next to impossible. So I kind of check that at the door when I engage the state, because when I engage the state, I do it on lawful terms, and I use the system to my benefit, because it's there for us to do that with. But it's only there for, it's there for anybody, but it takes time and work to do it, and know how to interact with it, and know how to stand on it. Because you can't just give somebody a remedy for something and then say, go do this. You can at risk. So it's better to know these things. But anyways, going back to this whole analogy of money, the system is based on money, right down to the birth certificate. Okay, so if you're familiar with the birth certificate system, I bet a lot of you guys, smash the like, let me know if you are, and say yes in the chat, because sometimes I wonder, do people know this stuff? Am I just going back to square one with all this? But anyways, if you understand about the birth certificate and what that means, and again, this isn't even controversial either. You can find government documents that say exactly what a birth certificate is, what a citizen is, all these things. They're all legal fictions, right? That's not controversial. That's not even, it seems like truth or gravy, and it is maybe at some level, but it's just straight up the way things are. So the birth certificate, and this is what G. Edward Griffin never gets into this, and I don't know why. I mean, because surely they must know this stuff. I mean, I know all kinds of people, especially in the U.S., that have full use of the system, and they're not complaining about January 6th and all that stuff. They basically just do and get what they want out of the system. I'm trying to make my hat less straight, but it's tripping me out. Yeah, it makes you wonder, don't guys like G. Edward Griffin know this stuff, but maybe because of the whole thing of you have to go silently, you have to go through the gate silently. It's not a revolution. That was kind of what I was trying to get to in that last video. I didn't get into that part though, actually. Well, I did a bit, but you have to go silently through the system. Anyways, I'm derailing. Going back to money. Anyways, these guys don't talk about it, and I always kind of wondered why. But the birth certificate itself has a QSIP number on it, and it says for treasury use only. So it basically defines itself as a financial instrument. So it's a financial instrument. And the way that because governments now borrow money to spend, they don't just collect your tax dollars. This is what people think. People think the government collects your tax dollars, holds that as a surplus or savings, and then allocates it into programs. That's not how it works at all. You can look at the quarterly reports of the government. All this stuff's public. They borrow money. So they write a budget, and they take that budget in front of the, whatever you guys do it in the States is the House or the Senate. And in Canada, they'll do it in the House of Commons to pass a legislature, and they write it as a bill. And this is interesting too, because what's with the terminology of money in the court? A bill, right? Because you go to the restaurant and you pay the bill. It's the same thing. It's a bill. So it's an invoice. So there's an invoice, there's a bill on the table, and it has to get approved. And so this bill becomes monetized through debt. And then they collect a bunch of bills, and then they go to the central bank and they borrow that money at interest. And then they allocate that money to programs in the system. And your income tax pays for the interest on that debt and nothing else. It doesn't really service the debt. There's so many other taxes out there, right? I mean, income tax is just one of them. There's so many other taxes and tariffs and whatnot, trading tariffs and things like this. Tax, like Canada has a carbon tax of all things. It's so ridiculous, but it's there. And there's no way around it really, because it's just on things, and you can't just say, oh, I'm exempt, But governments write a bill, and then that is how they allocate resources. So going back to money, is that when they borrow that money to pay for those bills, the assets that they're leveraging is your ass. Your birth certificate, that's your ass. That's your asset. It's not your asset, it's their asset. You are their asset. And it basically is like saying that you own a company that has 300 million employees that are working and will go to work and make money and pay taxes. And so you're leveraging the promise of their work. And so that's how the system works. That's how it gets money. That's how it gets into perpetual debt. And that's just, the little bit of it on how deep and insane it gets. But it's all about money, and it's all about water. And I wonder if there's something to Christ walking on water. I wonder if there's some other analogy when you think about, that iconic image of Christ flipping the table of the bankers, and then walking on water. And it's, I don't know, it is a rabbit hole, man. It is a rabbit hole. Larry says, how is it not slavery? It is. It's the most If they have to tax you directly, it is unpopular, so they borrow. Yeah, that's exactly it. And taxes are insane. And but it's inflation. How they really tax you is inflation, and it makes you wonder, why do they even have taxes to begin with? Because they could just print more money. With the amount of money that they're printing, if there was no income taxes tomorrow and they just printed the money, would there would it be noticeable more inflation? I kind of doubt it would. It would be. However, the income tax are the thing that service the debt. So the income tax have to be there because that's what they're there for. Because they weren't around. They weren't around before the central banks. So the central banks are what they're for, and it is an absolute form of slavery. So, Spruce Healing says, drink more water. Yes, I drink a lot of water because I get so hoarse when I talk. And hey, I'm going to throw something out to you guys here. I am looking at planning a conference type event. And I'm not announcing anything about it yet because there's not much to say. But I felt that there's been a real need for this kind of thing. And so I'm thinking about doing an event in BC, and it will be a sort of festival conference type thing. It'll be mostly outside. I've got a potential venue that could work really well. There's lots of trees. There's shade. It's a fairly decent sized acreage. And it could be basically a total just truther conference, but it would be kind of all the things that you probably are into, that if you watch me, you would be into these things. So regenerative agriculture, anything in the homesteading sort of vertical, call it, regen ag, homesteading. There'd be some natural birthing, like free birthing, stuff like that, homeschooling type stuff, unschooling type stuff, people talking about solutions in law or whatever, and maybe some entertainment in some way, but it would be mostly about solution stuff. So it wouldn't be getting people like, political commentary type people. It wouldn't be anything like that. It wouldn't be anybody political, because I think anybody who really gets what's going on isn't hoping that the Conservative Party or the People's Party of Canada is going to save the show, or like Trump is going to save the show. I think you probably realize that it's all just a dog and pony show, and you're better off just working on your own solutions. And so that's what this conference festival type thing would be about. I'm just curious, people in the chat. I see, hey, Daniel, I'll answer your question in a second, buddy. Who would you expect to be there? So throw me names. I've got about 25 people. I'm not going to name any names yet, but there are a lot of good names. And I've had a lot of interest. So, but I'm just curious who you guys would say would be sweet. We're going to do it in Canada. It's going to be in BC, because I want to run everything. I want to do it all. And we're fairly close to the border. So, it's not that far of a drive. This won't be at my place. This would be at a place further. I guess it wouldn't be, maybe more central BC actually, but still not that far from the US border. But yeah, it'll be sweet. So I'm kind of curious who you guys would say. Just throw me names. Daniel says, from the field member here, what was your garage floor done like your solar greenhouse, or is it straight? It's just straight concrete slab. I wish I would have done it. Actually, no, I wish I would have put PEX into it, because then I could just heat it up so much better, and it would just, but at the same time, I keep this wood stove in here going right now, and man, I only need to, I stoke it about half the time that I would in our cabin, and it keeps it plenty warm in here, because this is buildings R40, so it's super efficient. And these windows on the outside and these doors are all really, really efficient. So kind of wish I did that, but I didn't. My channel says getting into Canada is a major pain. No, it's not. What are you talking about? Unless you're like me, who's been going. My problem had been getting into the U.S., though it's not an issue anymore. But it was. No, it's not hard to get into Canada. There's no vaccine requirements or anything. It's nothing. And the thing for me is, I want to. Well, one is I know there's demand, and I don't mean to exclude people. But because the hugest part of my audience is absolutely in the United States. However, I do have a very strong contingent of people that follow me in BC and Alberta. So I'm quite confident that if we do an event that can hold 300 people or more, we'll sell it out with people just in the region. And my gut is telling me, you guys tell me what you think. Like, would you go to something like that? Would that be a sweet thing if it was not that far from you? Would you go? Yeah, I've been thinking about doing that. So if you're interested in it, let me know. I've got some comments on Twitter. I've been kind of asking people on there too what they think, and I've been asking people, what's the worst thing about a festival? And the most common answer was the porta potties. The second common answer was shade, lack of shade. So we've got that. We got those two things figured out. Really want to put effort into the food. I really want to have local food sourced from local farmers and have good quality. And I'm thinking about doing it 5 days. At first I thought 3, but then it's like, well, people are going to travel. And if it's in the middle of summer, which we want to do it right in the middle of summer, I think people have a good time. And I think it's really about the networking. I mean, I've been going to conferences for forever. I mean, I stopped going when the whole COVID thing happened, but up until that point, I've been going to them nonstop. I go to one almost every month, go to some event. And yeah, there's things about them that I liked. There's things about them that I didn't like. But yeah, and I'd never been much of a festival guy. I never went to those kind of music festivals. I did actually in Montreal, the Montreal Jazz Fest. I went every year when I lived there, of course. But no, these kind of outdoor party festivals, that's just not my scene. And that's not this scene. This is going to be completely family orientated, and just networking. And but yeah, that's what I was going to say is when I'd gone to conferences, I always just hung out in the hallway. I'd go and listen in on speakers, or if there was somebody that I really wanted to listen to, I'd go and listen to their thing. But for the most part, I just hang out in the lobby and the hallways and go out for drinks with people and just socialize. That's mostly what I did. And it was probably some of the best invested time I'd ever done in my career was doing that, going down to these, especially with I was talking about it last week, I think. Permaculture Voices was the best, in my opinion, the best regenerative agriculture conference I'd ever seen. Southern California, moved from a couple different places in the San Diego area, but it was the best one ever done. Unfortunately, Diego, who ran it, lost so much money at it, which is too bad. But the reason a lot of people lose money on conferences is because the hotels have just such BS things you have to do. It just makes it uneconomical, and they're all forced into it from their permitting and all that. But I've got a location that doesn't have those issues, so to speak, potentially. And it looks like it can be really sweet, and it's a ton of work. But I think I'd like to do it. And I'm trying to, I'll just be transparent with you guys. And I'm always transparent to when it's necessary, or when I feel like it, or it's not going to compromise myself in any way. But I've been really thinking a lot about what's going on right now in the world. And there are big shifts happening right now in the economy. And so I'm starting to diversify myself offline. I've been so invested in just being an online guy for years. I stopped consulting years ago. I stopped really consulting in, maybe it was 2019. I just stopped doing it, and it was a big part of my work. And then I stopped doing public speaking, and I was kind of forced to, though. So that's mostly why I did, is because I didn't want to take the shot. And so I wasn't going to go and fly around and do what I was doing and take a shot or shots. So that mostly is the reason that ended. But no, I've been doing consulting and just kind of getting back into getting out there. And so I've been actually really enjoying it. And I thought this doing an event would be kind of sweet, because I think, I mean, just in British Columbia and Alberta, there's so many people that would go. And there's also a lot of good speakers actually just in BC and Alberta too. A lot of good people that are known around the world. So it's going to be probably mostly Canadians, though I've already invited a few Americans, or mentioned it to them to see if they'd be interested. And so, yeah, that's been on my mind. So I'll be talking about it more soon as it develops. I've been basically the last 3 days, my friend who has the venue that we could do this at, we'd been talking about doing this for years. And now he's kind of at a place where he could host it. And we just started really getting into it. And I was going, man, this could be really sweet. And so I'm kind of just exploring if I should do it or not, because I don't want to lose money at it, because these things are expensive to do. And they involve a lot of logistics, and that's okay. And I kind of like doing logistics. I like being hands-on. I like being the guy that's just making things happen. And I kind of run things like a dictator. I've already had people heard about me doing this and like, oh, can I help? Can I help organize? No. I like, a lot of people run conferences like boards of directors and stuff, and that's not how I do things. I like to run things like a dictator. It's just like, I'm the main guy. I'm making it happen. And then we'll get volunteers. We're probably going to need about 20 volunteers. And I'll make an announcement about that if I do this and when it happens. And then we will kind of have a form you fill out, just so that it's easier for us to filter people out, basically. So there'll be that. And yeah, so that's kind of what I've been kind of thinking on. Rough dates. I don't want to say any dates yet, but I will tell you it's late summer. So some in the month of August, I'll say that. And so, Overlord's Shadow says, why would Curtis ever go to Toronto? Why does somebody want me to come to Toronto? Do an event in Toronto? Yeah, are you kidding me? What? Okay, I see what Overlord's Shadow is. It's like, no. I know, probably a half dozen people that I might invite to the conference, and they would be so much more stoked to get out of Toronto than do a conference in Toronto. No fucking way. No way. Are you kidding me? The beauty that we have out here in nature. This is the thing with BC, people always rag on BC because they call it the left coast, right? It's so liberal. Like the politics are liberal, just like they are in California, though not nearly as crazy as California, but they're liberal, and it's woke, and there's all that. But I don't live in a political world, so I don't see any of that. I live in the trees. So, who cares? But that's the thing about BC that is just nowhere in Canada can touch, just as in general. Even very few places in North America can touch. Oregon, Washington parts are just as beautiful. There's beautiful parts of Northern California, the redwoods and all that. But British Columbia is the most diverse landscape in Canada. And it's one of the most, per a geographical area, it's one of the most diverse landscapes in the world. It goes from Arctic to desert, and subtropical and everything in between. There's more climate. There's more USDA zones in BC than anywhere else in Canada. And the US obviously has more, because the US can go from, Wisconsin, zone 3, parts of Wisconsin, to at the southern tip of Florida, the Key West can be like zone 10, right? So that's huge. But in British Columbia, you have, as low as you want, Arctic, like zone 2, even in the mountains, zone 1, down to zone USD is zone 8 on some parts of the islands in British Columbia. You get a zone 8. And so it's so wide ranging. And so this is the great thing about British Columbia. And also is that unlike Alberta, the population density of British Columbia is completely concentrated into the lower mainland. And now Kelowna is a little bit bigger, but the lower mainland has, I think, probably 4 or maybe even 6 million people. And British Columbia in total only might have, I forget the exact numbers, look them up. But the rest, the point is 90% of the people in BC live in the lower mainland. And so from a prepper standpoint, that's really good, because then there aren't masses of people concentrated in different geographical areas. So if the proverbial shit hits the fan, you just don't want to be in the lower mainland, and most other places you'll be okay. You can get out of the lower mainland quick, hopefully. But, if there's a food crisis, if there's 3 days of no food, the lower mainland is a zombie apocalypse in a week. Same as many, many places in the United States. But again, I've said this before, but this is why I have chosen to stay here, is that if I can compartmentalize the idea of the politics that are atrocious and annoying, but it's so easy to compartmentalize them because all I have to do is just not pay attention to it. So I don't follow political people on Twitter. And so, but I do follow mainstream news. I follow tons of alternative media mostly, but I follow all the mainstream news to kind of get my trends and see what they're trying to gaslight us with or what they're trying to predictive program us for. And I kind of use that to navigate. But besides from that, the state and the whole political apparatus of Canada just doesn't exist to me. It just doesn't exist in my life. I live in trees. I've got 2 ponds that are really filling up with all this rain, just really cool. And I'm living in the bush and I have rural people around me, but that's the world I live in. And so British Columbia is just, in my opinion, it's hands down the best place in Canada. I think it's better than Alberta in general too, because there's just more space. The problem with Alberta is that most of it's peri-urban. It's if you want rural in Alberta, you have to go towards like Kananaskis. You have to go towards the Rocky Mountains, which sucks because the climate is horrendous. You get into the really cold boreal climates that are on the cusp of Arctic. Like just, and that's why Calgary is such a dodgy place to live as far as climate is. It's right in the gateway of the Rocky Mountains and all that weather in the high mountains to the prairie. And it's an edge of 2 radically different climates that interact in really dynamic ways that can be terrifying or sometimes blissfully amazing. If you've ever been in Calgary in a January when there's a Chinook and it's 20 degrees Celsius, you're like, what? It should be minus 20 Celsius right now, but it's 20 degrees. I've been in Calgary when these have come through, and it's unbelievable. It's a surreal thing. And as neat as that is, but it sucks because then you'll be farming and in June you'll get 2 inches of snow. Like it's been summer for the last month and you just get boom, it's 2 inches of snow or hail balls the size of golf balls. It's just this radical climate, which is, if you're going to farm in Alberta, it's far better to be closer to Edmonton or even just away from the Rocky Mountains, going east, because that area. And it almost ends if you look at a map and you look at Calgary and you go towards kind of Medicine Hat, or is it Lethbridge first? I forget. The climate gets a lot better. It gets a lot better. But Bearsworth, Dean Clifford, and Cal Washington, dude, those guys were on the list before there was even a list. So say no more. And those dudes are both really, really good friends of mine. So Yes. They're if there's a conference, those guys are 100% in. 100%. But yeah. Okay, look at this. You guys are throwing names at me now. Okay, sweet. That's what I want to see here. Mike from Alpha Vedic. Melissa K. Norris. She's in Washington State. Is she that free birthing woman? No, I'm thinking of Noland Norris. No, Nolanda Norris Clark or something like that. Larry Moore. Is that the old school law guy, Larry Moore? Or who's Larry Moore? I used to listen to a guy named something Larry something. Oh, there's Larry Moore. There's a Larry Moore in the chat. What's up, Richard? Nice. Where's the best place to live in South Dakota? Not South Dakota. Sorry. Just wouldn't be my pick. Wouldn't be my pick. But again, going back to British Columbia, is that's what's so appealing about British Columbia is that there's just tons of space. There's so much wildlife. There's so much abundance. I like winter. I like skiing and snowboarding and doing that stuff. And it's a good reset on the farm season. It's getting snow is really good for the soil. And restarting and purging, it's in past zone 7, even your soil never really freezes. So it diseases and pests and things like that don't go away. Amanda Vollmer, totally. Christian Westbrook, nobody knows where Christian Westbrook is. So Dr. Clown, I wonder, would old Media Bear come in? Would you take the mask off? As much as I love Media Bear. Yeah, Jeff Berwick, absolutely. He was on the list. Owen Benjamin. Yeah, no. I'm not ranting about him anymore. Health Ranger. Yeah, you got a connection to Mike Adams? I've hit up a few friends of mine for a connection to Mike Adams, and people don't want to share his contact information for some reason. So yes, I would love to have Mike Adams, but yeah, if you can connect me with him, sweet. Poly Farms, Joel Salatin. I think throw more Canadians at me. Dakota Cohen, absolutely, 100%. Absolutely. Paul Wheaton, no. Centropia, I don't know who that is. Just checking your guys's. Russell J. Gould. He has the capacity to give you the freedom of travel in any country on planet Earth, and they cannot affect you. BS. I know so many guys that went into that Russell J. Gould path and have nothing. I've seen nothing. Just a lot of talk. I don't not into that guy's stuff, man. I've met a lot of guys that have been into that syntax stuff, and I've seen nothing. Just a lot of, oh yeah, it's in the mail, right? So here's the litmus test. If you're getting into the law, and what I've been telling people this, I'll reiterate it again in this stream. I said it last stream, and it's partly why I called this stream. I'm double dipping, but I'm not co-mingling. Is co-mingling public and private, and so you're never going to learn the real gravy if you want to get into the law. You're never going to learn it in the public. This is public. You're only going to learn it in the private, meaning private conversations with people. And sometimes you pay people for their time. If the person if their time is valuable and you want their help, There's nothing wrong with paying people for their time. But you'll only learn it in the private. And where was I going with that? And that's partly why I want to do an event, is because it'd be way more cool to hang out with people in the flesh and have conversations that aren't restricted by algorithms, right? They're, a real event. Jack Spirko, yes. Wrangler Star, Cody. I don't think so. Cody doesn't really go to conferences. He just does his thing. Oren from the Gold Shop in Kelowna would be cool. Who are you, Bearsworth? You're obviously from Kelowna or something, or in the area. We've probably met before. Hey, have we met before, Bearsworth? Richard Grove. I would love to have Richard Grove. Hey, I'm going to be on Richard Grove's Grand Theft World podcast this Sunday at Sunday the 10th, 7:30 p.m. I'm coming in on Richard's show, and those guys, they go 8 hours or something. It's insane. I don't know how he does it. I don't know why he does that way, but he does, and it seems to work for them. But that's if you guys don't listen to Grand Theft World podcast, you got to. That's good gravy too. Oh yeah, we were talking about gravy, and just the real gravy just comes from real conversations, and it's online now it's spoiled. The online world is spoiled. There's too much garbage. It's too hard. Oh, funny. My wife says, guy in the chat says, thanks, babe. She just texted me. She must be watching the stream. 3 emails in your consulting page. Hasn't heard back. Dude, that sucks. What's another way for you without me giving my email away on here? Dan Dix, absolutely. Dan Dix, press for sure. Are you sure? Because I'm getting them. People people go to the urbanfarmer.co, and then if you go into the consulting page, you go to connect, and then you go consulting services. This website is so outdated. I'm kind of embarrassed by it, actually, but it is what it is. You go to connect, contact, and then you go fill out this form. You put your name in, your email. I'm just going to test it right now and just see. I'm going to email myself here. And see if it goes directly to me. And then I'll tell you if it's working or not. But yeah, my apologies, dude. That sucks, because I'm definitely doing more of that these days. So, okay. We'll see shortly when that email comes through. I'll test it in real time. Hey, there's Media Bear. Yo. Everybody's saying Dean Clifford. I love it. Yeah, Dean is in. But I'll only say that. Okay. I can't say anything else. Chance says, do you play upright bass? Yes, I do. Yeah, so I'm thinking about doing this conference, and see, there's already so many good names of Canadians. The thing is, there's just, Canadians don't get a lot of stuff. They don't. They even don't get a lot of me, to be honest. The vast majority of workshops and my consulting clients and my public speaking and all the workshops I've done, the vast majority of them have been in the United States. The vast majority. Americans know me better than Canadians do. Maybe not in BC and Alberta. I get recognized all the time. But if I go to Toronto or even Montreal, nobody notices me. I'll go to airport in Nashville, and I'll be like standing at the urinal, and somebody's like, "Hey, man, I like your videos." I get recognized more in places like that than I do in Eastern Canada, but I do get recognized a lot in Western Canada. Stephen Cornell, haven't heard. You mean Stephen Cornett? He's cranking. He's doing stuff. Canadian prepper, he's not coming. No, I've tried to reach out to him in the past. He doesn't respond. Some guys, and you know what? That guy is, I like him. My wife watches his videos. But he's not really, like, every video for him is, hey, the world's going to end tomorrow. And it's that's just not true. The world is not going to end tomorrow. The world's not going to end. It's going to go forever. We'll be having these conversations, hopefully in the private by then on YouTube streams, but we'll be having these conversations in tens of years. I say this to my truther friends all the time, because we've been, a lot of my close personal friends, we've been expecting this kind of stuff to happen forever. COVID happened and all that, and we were all, ready for it and whatever. And you kind of wax and wane in and out of, when is it going to get really bad? Like, when is it going to get worse? So when is it going to be the proverbial shit hitting the fan? When is it going to be the zombie apocalypse? People are starving on the streets. It's mayhem. It's Mad Max world, whatever. When's that going to happen? I don't think ever. I think what's going to keep happening is that the New World Order is going to keep making it more and more enticing to use their services, because they're just a corporation. They're all just a bunch of people doing business. They're going to keep it making it easier and easier to use their services, and harder and harder and harder to not use their services. But, if you start doing the work now to prepare for a world without their services, and, I'm still using their services, right? We're doing all this. But if you start preparing to not use their services, when those services become taken away, you're just on to the next thing. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm trying to just do more stuff in person, do more live things, do more events, but I'd like to just kind of stay local. I've been all over the States. I've been through 42 US states. I've done a lot of traveling. I've done more flying than I think I ever want to do again. If I don't ever have to fly an airplane again in my life, I could care less. If I don't have, if I don't fly to Mexico again or fly to somewhere else in the world, I could care less. I'm totally content living locally now. And I know people will travel too. And I hope they will, because I've done a lot of traveling for people. And so if people really want to come to this event that we're going to do, you're going to come to BC, and, people from Oregon, Washington, Montana, Wyoming, it's not that far to drive. Idaho, it's not that far to drive. So, yeah. Yeah. Larry says it's hard to be a wise man in your hometown. That's a really profound statement, and I think it's very true, Larry. Richard talking about Russell J. Gould. Yeah, I know who he is. I'm very familiar with his stuff. I've watched a lot of his videos. Most people still understand he ain't gonna get fuel. You ain't gonna get parts. The stores are going to be closed. Everything's going to be shut down. So what you got is all you got. Absolutely, 100%. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Russell J. Gould's the smartest man you'll ever meet. I kind of doubt that. I'll tell you the issue I have with him is this postmaster general thing. Prove it. How he makes this claim that he's the postmaster general, and this was all during all the QAnon thing, and it was all every really smart not every, but a lot of smart truthers and legal and law guys I knew got roped into the Q stuff, and then also found Russell J. Gould. And I wonder if they're somehow connected, but I'm sure they are. Oh, and he claims that they are. Russell J. Gould was saying all kinds of stuff about Trump, and that he was going to do all this stuff with because he's the postmaster general, but it's just a complete lie. So where postmaster general, prove it. Like, it's just ridiculous. And so I find I don't give people a lot of chances when they make really big claims that they just can't substantiate. And so I lose most of my respect for people like that. I don't respect people who lie. So people who actively lie, I just have no respect for, and I disregard them. That's why I don't respect politicians. Not that all politicians lie. I wouldn't make that claim, but the ones that are elected do, because they promised you the world on a pony up to the election, and then they got elected and didn't do anything. And mostly because they can't. But that's the problem as well. But David Dubine, good buddy of mine, man. I'm trying to just do mostly Canadians, though I will tell you that, because if you're running a conference, travel is expensive for people, and I want to be able to at least compensate people's travel. And so if people are more local, it's just way cheaper, and I don't want to go broke doing a conference. I'd like to make some money at it if I'm going to put so much work into it, because it's months of planning, even just with the amount of budgeting and kind of laying things out. I got this whole matrix of people I want involved and all these things I have to do. It's absolutely madness. It's absolutely madness. I haven't had to work this hard in years. And I'm only 3 days into just seeing if I actually want to do it, because I'm still not 100%. I could still say, you know what? I don't think it's going to be worth it. I don't think it's going to be worth it. But I hope that it is worth it, because I really, really want to do it. Bearsworth says, my dad got his first pension check last month. You think pensions will still be a thing in 10 years? No, I don't. And I think, especially in Canada, I'm assuming you're in the area. I'm assuming, in Canada, it's going to be toast. And the reason they're trying to kill people so quickly with the MAID stuff and the vaccine, obviously, it's part of that reason. But it's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane, because they just make up the money. But there's something about money that's actually far more sort of esoteric than even just the sort of, when I was illustrating the metaphor of the water and the current sea and all that. There's something even more dark about it all, in that there seems to be some kind of ritualistic thing just in taxes alone, just in the idea of, because like I said, they just print the money anyways. What do you actually need the taxes for? It's because there's a class of people in the world who don't just get rich from your money. Okay. They get rich from a bunch of people putting their blood, sweat, and tears into creating value for them. And it's actually, in my kind of going down the rabbit hole and getting really into esoteric stuff, like Franco Collins, if you've ever listened to him, he goes really deep into a lot of the Rosicrucians and Knights of Malta and all that, and canon law and all this stuff. It's really, really gravy. But there's something about rituals and having people do things ritualistically. And even if you go down the rabbit hole with the Freemasons and all that stuff, and you look at the oaths that they have to do and the ceremonies, and there's been a number of guys that are, have leaked stuff from the Masons. They've been pretty infiltrated for a long time, and they're falling apart because they can't get enough membership now. So now they're advertising more. But the oaths and things they do are weird. And as you get up into the higher degrees, you have to do, basically protect pedophiles and protect murderers. And, there's the whole Jack the Ripper legend and all that. It's pretty gnarly. But there's something to ritual. and having things done, even when people don't know they're doing them. There's something to that too. Quite esoteric. Patrick Moore, nah, I don't think so. I don't like to call people shills, but I kind of think he is one. He's the guy who said you can drink Roundup. Patrick Moore has got a really good position. I just saw an interview with Alex Newman. I really like Alex Newman, New American. Used to be part of the John Birch Society. I think he's one of the top guys in the space of, calling out the technocrats. Shit, I should invite him. He's really good. Anyways, he did an interview with Patrick Moore recently. I saw it on Twitter, and it was pretty good. Patrick Moore's position on climate change is bang on. Like, he's just got it not dialed. But then ask him about big ag, ask him about GMOs, and ask him about vaccines, and his position will blow your mind. You thought you were talking to a truther, and now you're listening to a neocon who's into big pharma and big ag. It's just weird. So no, I'm not into Patrick Moore. Larry Moore says, dude, it's on the cover of the Nirvana album, a naked kid in the water swimming after $1 on the hook. Exactly. I know that album cover. I was a big Nirvana fan. I think I was 13 when Kurt Cobain died. I was depressed. I was so into Nirvana. But yeah, totally. That album cover was figured it out. It was dialed in. And I think a lot of these guys, these musicians, that's why they die, is because they see some stuff in the darkness, the esoteric stuff of Hollywood, and they get freaked out, and they're like, this is crazy. And you can see it all the time, but I don't pay attention to those guys. I don't watch Pockets of the Future, Paul Romano, anymore. I stopped watching him years ago. I just don't care about Britney Spears and how crazy she is, or how crazy certain celebrities are. I just don't care. I don't find it interesting. It's like being obsessed with people that you don't like. It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. Being obsessed with people in general is weird. Especially if they're people that aren't in your life. Like if it's a celebrity or something like that, it's weird. It's not a healthy habit. I would highly recommend never hold feelings like that for anybody that's not in your immediate life. If it's not your wife or your children or somebody that's really important in your life, don't obsess about anybody. It's a weird thing to do. Please don't obsess about me. Don't, I'm just a guy. I'm just a normal guy. If you see me in the street, say hello. Don't be weird. I'm a normal guy. But some people get that way. And I get it. I get it. When I was younger and I first met somebody famous, I was probably kind of weird. I think I met David Suzuki when I was fairly young, and I was weird. And then I got to meet him later, and I was like, dude, you're a total asshole. He's such not a nice guy at all. Not like Joel Salatin. Joel Salatin's famous. Joel Salatin is world famous. You meet Joel Salatin, he'll shake your hand. How you doing? And you listen to you. And just a Joel Salatin is. I just love that guy. I just love that guy so much. He's been such an inspiration for me in so many different ways. But he's a guy who I don't think he gets enough credit, actually. I think he's a guy who's, he's the model of what a lot of people should look at. A successful man who's still humble. He's an incredible orator, but he's also a credible listener. He actually listens to people. I've had a number of conversations with Joel over the years. He's been on Liberty on the Land, but I've just had personal, just conversations with him privately. We've rubbed shoulders a lot at conferences and stuff, and exchanged a number of emails, and I feel like I've got to know him a little bit, and he's just a really, really good guy. And so he's a guy that people should model, and he's a truther. I've talked to Salatin about some real gravy, and he gets it. He He called the COVID thing out right at the beginning. He didn't even hesitate. So many people in the permaculture space just pussed out, didn't say anything. It was so lame, and still haven't. And I lost a lot of respect for people in that whole space, because it was kind of just, it's like, dude, you're not calling out something that's horrible and evil and is plain as Stalinist Russia. You're not calling it out. You don't have the balls to call out something that's obviously wrong. Does anybody have regrets about calling it out? I don't. I probably took some flack for it. I know I got a strike on YouTube around that time. Do I have any regrets about calling that stuff out? Hell no. I have nothing, but I'm glad that I did. It brought me closer to more people than ever. It really showed who our allies were. Anyways, Salatin was one of those guys that called it out early and didn't hesitate to. And that's a real dude. That's a real dude. He doesn't cuck. Salatin doesn't pander. He doesn't. And the social justice warriors have come after him multiple times, and they've never hurt him. And yeah, Allison says, can you speak about what happened to Joel and Mother Earth News? Yeah, I have before. It's been a long time. Yeah, it was a joke. It was pathetic. Joel Salatin was the number one Mother Earth News. I went to the Mother Earth News fairs for, I don't know, I did a year or two circuit around the time my book came out, 2016, 2017, 2018 too, I think. Every Mother Earth News fair in the United States. I've been to, I don't know, 6 of them, different places. Salatin, number one speaker every event. Hands down, the number one guy who fills out hundreds, if not thousands of people to listen to an oration that is the best parts of a really good sort of a Baptist church sermon, and sort of a libertarian, I don't know, war cry or a farmer war cry, like, we're going to be on the land, just listening to Salatin speak publicly is a spiritual experience. That's how good he is. And then Mother Earth News, because Salatin said something unsavory, and what he said is literally irrelevant. And I can't even remember what it was, because it's something so insignificant that some idiot social justice warrior came after you for. And here's the funny thing, actually. Here's the funny thing. The guy who came after Salatin, that triggered that whole thing with Mother Earth News letting him go and all that, I forget his name. I forget his name. The guy's irrelevant. He was some social justice, basically affirmative action hire, who got a bunch of money to start a farm on all these communist social justice principles, this whole total inverted hierarchy where people of color get a better spot at the table because they're people of color, not because they have skill and merit and charisma and are kind of good leadership material or whatever. No, just you check the box of, oh, you're a transgender midget who's black and you happen to be from Palestine or some you just total just a garden variety of things that make you a victim. And this guy formed this farm, and he came after Salatin. He got kind of famous for a little while. He had a little time in the limelight, and there's some article that went in the New York Times and then the Atlantic. And he's just talked trash about Joel Salatin. He's just a piece of this, that, and the other, for all these things that are just nonsense. They have nothing on him. He is a stand-up guy. He's the model of, I think, what a lot of men in Western culture should look at as a man to model, is Joel Salatin. And anyways, this guy, this affirmative action hire guy, his farm fell apart in a year because he was corrupt, and he was the classic thing of every liberal who accuses everybody of being all the things that they're doing, because that seems to be their modus operandi, whether it's subconscious or fully conscious. I have no idea, but there's something about that, is that all the people that virtue signal the loudest end up being the biggest crooks. And this guy was one of them. And at the end of the day, none of it did anything to Salatin. It didn't hurt his career in the slightest. Mother Earth News were the only people that lost in that, and actually a number of other publishers. Hey, you know what, brother, who sent me the email thing about my consulting? I just noticed that I'm not getting it. So I'm going to have to fix that. So I'm going to get on that soon and then try again. So my apologies to anybody who's reached out to me about consulting and I haven't got back to them. There seems to be an issue with my website not working. So we're going to have to figure that out. So another way is if you're on Twitter, you can message me on Twitter. You can't message me on YouTube, but if you're on Twitter, you can message me. And so if you want to get to me, reach out to me before the email thing gets sorted out. You can do that, but hopefully I can have that sorted out fairly soon. I don't do that stuff anymore. I don't even know what to do about it. So I'd have to have one of my guys look at it, but I will figure that out. So again, my apologies for anybody who's reached out to me with consulting. Is that, yeah, that's, there's something wrong with my website. Yeah. So we're going to be moving the stream over fairly soon. So yeah, anyways, that was the story about Salatin at Mother Earth News. And I actually, yeah, I hate to say it, but my publisher kind of got woke too, New Society. And I'm pretty sure they have the, they have the first right of refusal for me if I write another book. And I do want to write another book at some point. And I'm kind of using Twitter as a sounding board to kind of collect my thoughts and get feedback on them to write that book. And so if you follow me on Twitter, that's kind of a big part of my approach is I'm just kind of throwing out ideas into the void and seeing what things come back with fruit, if you will. But yeah, that's what happened with Salatin. And so I was going to write another book, but my publisher got woke and they started doing all this woke stuff. So I don't think they'll want to publish my next book anyways, because it's not woke and it's going to be completely politically incorrect. And I'm not going to, I'm going to say a lot of things in that book. The book's going to be, it isn't going to just be, it's not going to be hands-on. It's going to be more what people watch me for now. It's more about ideas, but also hands-on in some ways. There will be some hands-on things to it, but I kind of want to write, and maybe I'll have to write 2 books. Maybe I'll have to write a book that's more about my philosophy and things like that, and nuanced things, and then maybe another technical thing, because I still do things that I find technically interesting that I want to share with people. And I want to do a water course. We might do a water course this year on just moving water on the homestead in every way: wells, irrigation, French drains, ponds, diversions, swales, all kinds of stuff like that, earthworks. I want to do a course on water, but I kind of just like riffing and I like philosophically thinking about things. And I'm glad you guys do too. It's why I think a lot of you guys tune into my streams is I riff on these things and people seem to enjoy them and enjoy me kind of thinking things that a lot of people might be thinking at the same time. There's something powerful about that, isn't there? There's something, I know it's kind of, it's exciting when you're listening to somebody and then they articulate something in a way that you thought, but you just never articulated it that way. And then that helps you crystallize that thought into a better way to communicate it. And I think that's ultimately what we do when we listen to one another. That's what I get out of listening to people, as that it helps you communicate your ideas better. And then it helps you, it kind of helps you connect with people and build meaningful relationships. So I might shut this one down so I have a little bit of a break before I do my my Twitter space. Oh, and next week's Twitter space, I'm going to have Ben Falk on the show. So, and I'll have all these after this one's done. I'll book the next one, and then there'll be a reminder for it on my Twitter feed. You'll see it there. And if you follow me on Telegram too, I'm still sharing this kind of stuff on Telegram as well. But I'm gonna have Ben Falk on the show, and we're gonna talk about firewood. And he's got an insane system. And actually, I'll show you guys this. I just want to kind of promote Ben because I really like his work. And the thing that I like about him, he's sort of if you're not familiar with Ben Falk, he wrote a book called the Resilient Homestead. And it's a really good permaculture book. And the thing that I like about it is his thing is more of oh geez, is more about homesteading than it is it's permaculture, but in a homesteading context. And so where is his thing here? He does this thing with firewood that'll blow your mind. And here it is. So he's doing this workshop, and there's a link to it if you guys want to check it out. And I'm going to be on the call, so it's going to be like a Zoom call, and there'll be Q&A and stuff. And I'll just be there as a fan, as just somebody watching. But I'll have lots of questions for Ben. But he's going to be on my show on the Liberty on the Land podcast next week, next Wednesday. And his event is the day after that, Thursday. And so 4 p.m. Eastern, it's a live webinar. And he's basically going to give you I think he gives you a tour of his place. It's $35. It's nothing. But he's got these really good systems, and his wood stove, he's got this all plumbed, and he's got his homestead set up where he's got his wood stove going. He's always got wood in his oven because he just dries it. And it's the fast way to dry wood. But he's only got this stove going in his house. It's a wood cook stove, and it's similar to the one I have. It's got a full top, and then the flue comes out on the side. And he boils water with this. So this wood stove heats his whole home in the wintertime. So basically, I think for him, it's like 3 or 4 months of the year. This is running 24/7. It's heating the home. He cooks on it. His family cooks on it, and it heats all of their water. So he's taking a shower. It's heated from this, everything. And he's got it through, it's a thermal siphon. So it's really, and he'll talk about this stuff way better than I am because it's his thing. But it's a brilliant system. And then that goes into this, the excess water that comes out of the stove goes into the domestic hot water tank. And so he's taking showers, and it's all from wood. So how sweet is that? And I've got that same stove. So when I finish my house, I'm doing the same thing as Ben is. I wish I had it going now, because in my cabin, we heat with wood in the winter, but I'm using propane on demand for hot water, which is fine. It's not expensive, even with the price of fuel these days. But I'd rather be more hardcore and just be burning wood, because I've got so much wood to burn. And so anyways, he's doing that thing. And there's a link to it. Or just if you go to Whole System Design here, I'll put it in the chat, promote Ben's stuff. He's a great dude, and he's got a lot of experience. He's developed 2 full acreage permaculture homesteads. 2, and he owns, and he rents one out. He Airbnbs the house on one of them, but he utilizes the site. And so I might go visit him sometime. And he's always said, "Yeah, you can just stay at one of the houses." I'm like, "Oh, that'd be sweet." Oh, there's a super chat. Thanks for the super chat there, Darren. Look up and watch this. No LTX24. This is a video about a huge nerd dad that is the CEO and owner of a BC tech video company, talking about his own company hosting an expo conference. Cool, man. I'll copy that and check it out. That sounds great. Love it. I won't watch it right now, but yeah, thanks for the recommendation. Thanks for the super chat, brother. Yeah. Vin says, I listen to you, Curtis, because of the ideas you're sharing. Thank you. Blessings to you and your loved ones. Thank you. Blessings to you. But yeah, going on Ben's thing. So when Ben comes on the space next week, next Wednesday, we'll riff on that. Ben's also really switched on. He's another permaculture guy that wasn't afraid to call the BS out either. And I actually seen him change his viewpoint because I've known him for a number of years, at least just online. But I've seen him change his viewpoint on things, which is refreshing. It's nice when people aren't afraid to say that they've changed their ideas and, or whatever. It's like, it's all growth, right? So, but yeah, Ben's a truther, and he's a incredible homesteader, permaculture dude. Another thing he gets into too, which is kind of neat, is if you're into the work of Bill Mollison and the classic permaculture stuff with the zones 1, 2, 3 and all that, Ben talks a lot about zone 4 permaculture, and that's really hunting and living off the land in that way. And that's nothing new, of course not, but it's kind of neat to hear it put into that context. And then when you start to think about your homestead, and I've been influenced by his ideas too, and I think about my homestead that way. And for me, it starts micro. It's the zone 0, which is the body, and maybe just like the immediate household. And especially if you have a family, your bodies are so connected. Your kids get sick, you get sick. We're all kind of sharing the same things. The zone 0, and then there's the zone 1, the immediate homestead. The kitchen garden right outside the kitchen. Things within within 20 feet. Then there's your zone 2. Could be the greenhouse, or a big garden, or maybe some fruit trees. And then your zone 3 is pasture animals and things like that. And then zone 4 is into the rural areas. And so I kind of like that idea that Ben talks about. Maybe we'll riff a bit on that too. Matt just sold my BTC. So did I. I sold some crypto, and I kind of wish I would have waited an extra day, but still caught enough upside that it's kind of like you can never get it perfect. You can never get it perfect. At least I can't. And that's more where I'm more of the guy. I do the work. I'm not a guy who makes money off my money. I do the work. So I'm not a germ theorist. No, I'm not. I think I'm more into terrain, but I just can't help but observe that when my family gets sick, we're all sick at the same time. So there's something to that, right? Can I explain it? Does it mean that I'm saying I'm into germ theory? No, it's just I said a thing happened because it happened. And so whether that fits into the germ theory or the terrain theory, I don't care. I'm agnostic in these things. It's just that happened. So I'm not a germ theorist because I said that when my kids get sick, we get sick, because it's just, that's what happens. So no, but I definitely am more into the terrain side of things as far as what makes sense, but I still can't help but notice that, so I think things aren't all black and white. Maybe it isn't just germ theory or terrain theory. Maybe it's something in between, who knows? Who cares? Who cares what line in the sand? Oh, you're this. Oh, you're a flat earther, or you're a globe earther, or you're a terrain, or you're a germ theorist. Who cares? Who cares? And that's the thing too. Yeah, Big Mammal says you're all supposed to the same thing too. And yeah, and that's kind of what I was actually more meaning when I was talking about our family in the zone 0, is that we're consuming all the same food. We're using all the same bathroom. We're using all the same soap. You know what I mean? My son uses my toothbrush right now. So, it's things like that. We all have the same genetics. So we're all connected. And it's a cool thing. The thing that I've observed as being a parent, I'm curious if anybody else in the stream who's a parent has experienced this, is that our kids seem to be the front line of things. If I don't know, call it a virus, I don't know what it is, but our kids seem to get sick first, and they're not sick for very long. And then my wife and I will get sick, and they almost seem to take the thing, and it's less, we don't get sick for as long. It's weird. But I've noticed that, and I don't know what that is. And so, this whole thing with germ theory and terrain theory and all that, like, I just don't really care. I'm just into what can I observe with my eyes, my own eyes, and what can I observe that's reality, and that's my world. And so what side of the fence things are with things, I don't care. I'm just like kind of agnostic with these things. I just observe and interact. And I find that actually helps me see through propaganda very well. Because I just go, what can I see with my own eyes? And that's kind of what woke me up with the climate change stuff, is that I'd been bought into that narrative since I was 12 years old, that climate change was an existential crisis that, threatens all of humanity. And the only solution is governments of the world coming together and taking massive action. I thought that was the reality for so long. And then when I just observed that all their predictions just were wrong, they just never happened. I've been hearing about sea ice melt for at least 20 years. I have not observed any sea ice melt, or I have not observed the oceans rising in any way, because I've been going to a city like Vancouver since I was a child. In the port of Vancouver, the water is the same level as it's always been. I can observe that with my own eyes. I've been to New York City a few times, and I've seen the Statue of Liberty. You just think of these iconic places you can go to on the ocean, and the level is always been the same. Yes, it waxes and wanes with the tide, but it's always been the same. So again, kind of going back to how I started to wake up with a lot of things, is I just take what I'm seeing with my own eyes and compare it to what I'm being told. And if they don't line up, I know I'm being lied to. And that's how it's so easy with the climate change narrative to just call it for what it is. It's just pure propaganda. It's political propaganda. Climate's and it's one of these Houdini moves where they get you into doing something that there's some truth to it. They get you repeating something that is kind of obvious, like how they went from global warming to climate change. They had to, because the globe was not warming and people were not experiencing consistent warming. And then they changed it to climate change. And the thing that's so funny and manipulated about climate change is that climates always change. The only constant in nature is change. So to say that climate change, it's such a redundant statement, because it's just so obviously true, but it gets you into this thing that's full of baggage, of political baggage, that just comes down to, well, you don't believe in climate change if you don't think the government should just stop everything and create communism, technocratic communism, to save the climate. It's so ridiculous. And it's a massive indoctrination apparatus. And it had me for years. I mean, it had me for many years of my career as the urban farmer, many years. I go back in my old videos. I was all in, but I woke up because I started observing and just meeting other people that kind of red pilled me. Like I said before, Rob Avis actually red pilled me on climate change first, because he was listening to a guy, that Dr. Tim Ball, who's the seminal, well, he's not but he's one of the most articulate scientists, climatologists that you can listen to, who just completely destroys the climate change narrative, just completely obliterates it. Dr. Tim Ball. I've talked about him before. Anyways, Rob Avis told me about Dr. Tim Ball, and he was a permaculture guy telling me that climate change is a bunch of political BS. And I'm sitting here going, what? And I just never really heard that before from a guy like him. But it woke me up, and I started looking into it, and I just started going, yeah, like, I can observe these things. I don't need an expert to tell me what I should be seeing. I can see them. And what you're telling me is not lining up. You're telling me the oceans are rising. They're not. It's observably impossible. Like it's just not happening. Then they want to tell you that the polar ice caps will be melted by 2013. Didn't happen, right? All the predictions that they made never happened. So that's the thing that's so crazy about it, is how gaslit are you? Like how much gaslighting is there happening, where for 20 years, the environmental activists have been wrong consistently. They've been saying the world's going to end in the next 5 years, and it just never does. And this existential crisis that they're promising just doesn't happen, because climate change, if it was happening the way it was supposed to be happening, it'd be a pretty sweet deal for Canadians and many Americans. It'd be a pretty sweet deal. I would love global warming. Like, I wish that was happening, because that'd be sweet. I'd have a longer growing season, and we'd still have winter, but give me an extra degree, 1-2 degrees Celsius overall. Absolutely take it. All the poor people from the world are moving to the northern countries anyways, whether it's climate change or it's global cooling, which actually looks more like what's actually happening. It's global cooling. But anyways, yeah, so we're going to leave it here, folks. And smash the like. If you guys liked this, let me know. And come over to Twitter. I'm going to do Twitter spaces. I'm going to go take a whiz, and then I'm going to play a little bit of music to start the Twitter space. And I'll see you in there. And so it's all going to be audio. So go to Twitter and then look me up at OffGridStone. And then we'll be on the phone, and I'll riff for a little while. And I'll be curious to see how many people from YouTube go in there. And so I might just kind of treat that as a new show, because it is a new show. It's Liberty on the Land Talks. It's going to be a little bit more. I don't have an agenda tonight, except I'm just going to riff for a while and then take your guys' calls. So you call in, join the space, request to speak. But then going forward, I'm going to have guests, and then and we'll take calls too. So that's how it's going to go. So head over to Twitter at OffGridStone, and then that's where this stream will commence. And I'm going to play a little music to start it out, and I'll see you guys over there. All right, folks, have a fantastic night, and hopefully I'll hear you and talk to you over in Twitter Spaces. All right, see you there.